Step 3. Well, before we move on to step 3, we will want to take the same steps we did along the seams between steps 1 and 2. As you can see, remember this is due to a print failure, this gap. But as you can see, if you come in here, we've got those glue lines again. A little bit of overflow. So what we want to do is, again, cut it, sand it. With this type you can't, because it is a full seam with glue all the way throughout. You can pick at it with your fingers. However you do it, you want to make sure to finish that surface. Once you've got the tines on here, getting into this space is a little difficult. You know, you're having to work around the tines, and you don't want to do that. So I recommend doing any sanding or filling of gaps before you move on to step 2. Or step 3. Now, step 3, same verse. You might want to check your tines. Due to mild imperfections, it can generally be pretty precise, but sometimes you'll get prints that are just a little weird. And so check your tines and find the tines that are the best match for each piece. Generally, it shouldn't be too much of a problem, but sometimes it is. If you have any gaps, again, your Allure paint or other option is available. So here's the weird thing. You can't, before, when I held these together, I would hold them together on a side when I put the body piece together. When I put these pieces on it, I held it. Let's see if you can, let me show you. So, I held it in this position with this support position here. That didn't have, was not being glued at the time. So this and this weren't actually didn't have much pressure on them. But if we then add in a tine, all 3 tines are going to be there, and so there's going to be a lot of pressure on those joints. So we want to find a position to lay this down where the force is not gonna be on the glued surface. It's actually pretty simple. You want to hold it like this, and here's what it looks like on the table. Okay, you see I've got the support here, and the weight of this is actually on this corner here. This is why we wanted this to dry before we went any further. As you can see, the actual tine would not actually be supporting any of the weight of the body of the gun, and so that's going to help keep these from shifting. Make sure when you put on a clamp that your clamp comes up from the table. So we go about gluing them the same exact way we've gone about gluing everything else. That is to say, you take your surface. I recommend taking the freer piece for your surface. That way you're not That way you have less to handle in one hand while you're putting the glue down. You get your clamp ready and you attach it. You're not going to be able to see this very well. So you put the surfaces together, put some pressure on them, and you get your clamp, and you clamp it down. Again, with these pieces, because there's no alignment pin, you want to kind of make sure that the piece is firmly aligned side to side here and here. There you go. Repeat with the other 3 times. So there you go. Properly done. The tines will be aligned relatively and will be even. Be careful. It's really if you got clamps that are a little too big, it might get a little tight. Certainly doable. Now you need to wait again until this dries. Patience. Now there are some final finishing steps you're going to want to take. I'll cover them when I get back. Alright, so after a couple days of gluing pieces together, we finally have the full thing together. Now, as before, one of your first steps is going to be to get rid of any overflow of the glue. This is going to be the most difficult time to do it, as you've got a bit of an unwieldy. You need to get in here. Just do the best you can. I've been working on it for a while. Even out surfaces. And generally get it so that you are ready for to finish this off. Now, once you've got all the glue off, the final step, before we go to paint this piece, there is one final step, and that is we don't want to, and that's a step we've been, again, trying to do each step of the way, which is make sure all the little gaps that might have erupted that might have occurred from variations in the print, we need to get those filled. If you've been following this video along, you know exactly how I'm gonna do that, and that is the Allure E6000. All you're gonna do is paint these gaps. The way you go about this, for those of you who may have forgotten, you take your gap and you just run. Ooh. Got a little bit of a little more glue than I wanted there. You just kind of run it over the surface. Now, especially with this, I find it really easy to just lightly run a paper towel over the surface after doing that. That makes sure the glue is forced in there. Now I ended up with a little bit of a depression between the glue and the surface, so I've run it again. There we go. You don't need too much. By pressing a paper towel over it, you can force it kind of into the crack. That's going to be a good step. And then you just overload it. And then when we, later on, we can do our standard filing and sanding to get that surface even, to get that surface to be flat. Do this for all your cracks, any remaining cracks that you might have, anything you find. That way, when we move to painting, it's not, the cracks aren't going to be noticeable. One more thing I forgot to mention. When, obviously, I am going to provide advice for spray painting this gun. That is the means I am using to paint. If you have access to it, powder coating might also be a really good option. And that's going to require you to have all the cracks filled, not just the bigger cracks. So, you know, how much you fill depends on your painting method. Please take a look at the painting videos. If you're unfamiliar with spray painting, I've provided a few tips to get your paint, to make sure that your paint is even and will hold to your gun so that it will last.